I still remember the day my doctor looked me in the eyes and said, Frank, if you don't get your blood pressure under control, you're one step away from a heart attack. That moment hit me like a freight train. I was 71 years old, retired, and thought I was doing okay. Sure, I got a little winded walking up the stairs, and sometimes I felt dizzy in the mornings, but I just chalked it up to aging. What I didn't know back then is that my body had been sending me warning signs for years. High blood pressure doesn't shout, it whispers. And most people don't hear it until it's almost too late. For me, it started with mild headaches in the afternoon. Then came the ringing in my ears. My hands would get cold, even in the summer. But like most men, I ignored it. I didn't want to be that guy who runs to the doctor every time something feels off. But after that wake-up call in the clinic, I knew I had to make a change. And surprisingly, the biggest change started not with a pill, but with a spoon. Yes, a spoon. You see, I came across an old remedy from a European doctor, something simple, natural, and backed by more science than I expected. It wasn't a supplement. It wasn't some fancy superfood from the jungle. It was something you probably already have in your kitchen. And when I started eating this every morning, my blood pressure dropped so fast, even my doctor was stunned. But before I tell you what it was, let me take you back just a little further. I grew up in a small town in Minnesota. My parents were hardworking folks. Dad was a mechanic, Mom worked part-time at a bakery. We didn't have much money, but we had strong traditions, especially when it came to food. Every morning, my mom would prepare a warm, hearty breakfast: oatmeal, toast with butter, a boiled egg, and something she called heart mix, a spoonful of mashed garlic, lemon, and olive oil. I never questioned it as a kid. I just ate it because it was on the table. But as I got older and moved out, I left those habits behind. Fast food took over, frozen dinners became my norm, and eventually, I forgot about that old heart mix completely. It wasn't until decades later, after that conversation with my doctor, that I remembered. Funny how the mind works. It's in moments of crisis that we suddenly recall the wisdom of our parents. So, I called my sister and asked if she remembered Mom's recipe. She laughed and said, "Of course. I still eat it every morning. Why do you think my pressure's perfect?" That got me curious. So I did some digging, and what I found blew my mind. Let's break it down. Garlic. This humble little bulb has been studied extensively for its cardiovascular benefits. It helps relax the blood vessels, improves circulation, and reduces inflammation. Studies have shown that regular consumption of garlic can lower systolic and diastolic pressure significantly, in some cases just as well as certain medications. Lemon. Packed with vitamin C and antioxidants, lemon helps cleanse the arteries, reduce cholesterol buildup, and supports liver function, which indirectly influences blood pressure regulation. Olive oil, especially extra virgin, is rich in heart-healthy fats. The monounsaturated fats in olive oil have been proven to improve endothelial function, that's the inner lining of your blood vessels, and reduce pressure inside the arteries. Combine all three, and what do you get? A natural, powerful, and simple tonic for your heart. I thought, well, what do I have to lose? So the next morning, I mashed up 1 clove of raw garlic, added the juice of half a lemon, and a teaspoon of extra virgin olive oil. I mixed it into a small spoonful and ate it right before breakfast. At first, the taste was a shock, especially the garlic, but I stuck with it, and after just 10 days, something changed. At first, I didn't expect much. I mean, how much difference can a spoonful of kitchen ingredients really make? But then, around day 10, I noticed something odd. I woke up with more energy, no more pounding headaches in the afternoon. My hands were warm, my mind felt clear, and when I checked my blood pressure with the home monitor, it had dropped, 132/84. That might not sound like much to you, but for me, a guy who had been floating around 150/95 for years, it was incredible. I thought maybe it was just a fluke. So I checked again the next morning, 129/82. That's when I started to believe something real was happening. I kept going with my morning spoonful, every day, same time. 1 mashed garlic clove, half a lemon's juice, a teaspoon of extra virgin olive oil. Sometimes I added a little warm water to mellow the flavor, and the numbers just kept improving. By the third week, I had readings in the 120s. That's the kind of blood pressure I hadn't seen since my 40s. Even my doctor was surprised. He said, "Frank, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. But also, tell me what it is." So I told him. I expected a skeptical look, maybe even a lecture. But instead, he leaned back in his chair, smiled, and said, "You know what? There's actually solid research behind all three ingredients. Maybe we should start prescribing kitchens instead of pills."
Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not telling anyone to throw away their medication. Blood pressure is serious business, and you should always follow your doctor's advice. But what I am saying is this. Sometimes the answer isn't more chemicals. It's more wisdom, the kind that our parents and grandparents lived by, long before modern medicine caught up. This little morning habit didn't just help my numbers. It changed how I felt. My digestion improved. I had fewer cravings for salty snacks. And I noticed my moods were better. I didn't feel as irritable or tired. Even my afternoon naps became shorter because I didn't need them anymore. Something else happened too. One morning, I went for a walk around the block, just a casual stroll after breakfast. But when I got back, I realized something strange. I hadn't felt winded. That might sound minor, but for someone who used to avoid stairs like the plague, it felt like a small miracle. I started walking more. 5 minutes turned into 10. 10 turned into 20. I wasn't trying to work out. I was just following what my body was asking for. And as the days went by, I realized it wasn't just the garlic or the lemon or the olive oil. It was the mindset, the return to something simple, something natural, something my body understood. We're taught to chase complex solutions, but sometimes the most powerful remedies are the ones that have been with us all along. But I'll tell you the part that really shocked me. My doctor, yes, the same one who used to lecture me about statins and inevitable aging, called me back into his office after my 6-month blood work. He sat down, looking puzzled. "Jack," he said, "I don't know what you're doing, but your numbers look 20 years younger." He pointed to my cholesterol levels, down. My blood pressure, 118/74, steady. Triglycerides, cut nearly in half. Even my resting heart rate had dropped by 12 beats per minute. And here's the kicker. He asked me if I'd consider speaking to a small group of his other patients to explain what I'd been doing. Me, the retired teacher who used to pass out from blood pressure swings in the middle of the grocery store. I nearly laughed. So I shared everything. No secrets. The morning tea, yes, but also the food I began every day with and still do. A warm bowl of fermented oatmeal topped with a spoonful of ground flax seeds, a handful of blueberries, and just a drizzle of raw honey. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive. That combination, I later found out, supports nitric oxide production, one of the keys to relaxed arteries and healthy circulation. Blueberries, for instance, are loaded with anthocyanins, which help the inner lining of blood vessels stay flexible, and flax seeds are rich in ALA, an omega-3 that lowers inflammation without any of the side effects of pills. Plus, that breakfast kept me full for hours. No sugar crashes, no caffeine jitters, no salty cravings. It reset my entire metabolism, quietly, gently, just like a forest regrows after a fire. But food alone isn't everything. There was one more habit I picked up, completely by accident, that I believe sealed the deal. It was walking. Not long hikes, not gym treadmills, just 5 to 10 minutes after each meal. I started after reading a study out of the University of Washington that showed how post-meal walking helps lower blood sugar spikes. But what I didn't expect was how it calmed my body. My digestion improved, my sleep deepened, my blood pressure, which always used to climb after eating, especially dinner, now stayed steady. And you know the best part? I looked forward to it, not as a workout, but as a moment of peace. Me, the trees, the birds, the wind. Sometimes I'd call my grandson while walking. Other times, I'd just listen to the world. I've since read that walking after meals stimulates something called the second heart, our calf muscles. When they move, they gently pump blood back up to the heart, helping circulation without strain. For someone in their 60s or 70s, this is gold. I wasn't trying to be young again. I was just trying to feel like myself again, and that I did. Now, I know what you might be thinking.
Jack, is it really just the oatmeal and the walk? Can something so simple make that much of a difference? Let me tell you what I've learned the hard way. Simplicity is often overlooked in a world addicted to complexity. We're told we need exotic supplements, expensive medications, and strict diets with names we can't pronounce. But the truth? The human body wants to heal. It just needs the right conditions. And I had spent most of my life giving it the wrong ones. Processed foods, late-night snacks, too much salt, too little fiber. My breakfast used to be frozen waffles, bacon, toast drowned in butter, or worse, nothing at all, followed by a jittery cup of coffee. My poor arteries never had a chance. But when I began feeding my body the right way in the morning, everything else started to align. You see, the first thing you eat in the day acts like a conductor. It sets the rhythm for your blood sugar, your cortisol levels, your digestion, even your cravings. When I started with that humble bowl of fiber-rich, antioxidant-packed goodness, my body said, "Thank you." And the real magic? It wasn't just physical. After a few weeks, I noticed something strange. I wasn't snapping at my wife anymore. I didn't feel that constant low-level frustration, like something was always off. I'd go outside and just breathe, enjoy the way the light hit the trees, the smell of rain on the pavement. I didn't know it then, but lowering blood pressure also reduces the stress response, less cortisol, less adrenaline, more parasympathetic activity. That's the body's healing mode. And when you feel better physically, you make better choices. You move more, you sleep deeper, you connect more. It becomes a cycle, but a good one, a healing one. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect. I still have pizza nights with my grandkids. I still love a good slice of cake on birthdays. But the foundation of my day, the thing I never skip, is that breakfast and that walk. And here's something else I started doing that helped. A pinch of beetroot powder in my water before lunch. Just a small amount. It tastes earthy, sure, but the nitrates in beets help widen the blood vessels naturally. My doctor said it was one of the smartest things I could have added, and it cost less than a bottle of soda. I share this because I spent too many years believing that healing had to be complicated, that reversing blood pressure naturally was some mythical idea for health nuts. But now I know it's not mythical, it's mechanical, it's biological, and above all, it's possible, especially if you begin your day not with chaos, but with calm. You'd be amazed how powerful a bowl of oats, a handful of berries, and 10 quiet minutes of movement can be. One morning, around the 6-week mark, I went in for a follow-up appointment with Dr. Simmons. She walked into the room holding my chart and gave me this look, eyebrows raised, lips slightly parted, the classic "you won't believe this" doctor face. "Jack," she said, "your systolic pressure has dropped by 18 points, and your diastolic is down 10. That's significant. What changed?" I smiled. "Oatmeal," I told her, "and walking, every morning." She laughed, kind of in disbelief. "You're serious?" I nodded, completely. Then she sat down and leaned in a little closer. "Most of my patients ask for more pills," she said. "You're the first one to walk in here and tell me food and fresh air are working better than any prescription." That moment stuck with me, because I realized we've been taught to underestimate the power of small, consistent actions. We think if something doesn't hurt or require sacrifice, it can't possibly work. But the truth is, the body craves rhythm, not punishment, and rhythm was exactly what I'd given it. Let me break down what I was actually doing for my body from a physiological standpoint, because once you understand the why, it becomes easier to stick with the what. When you start your day with soluble fiber, like what's in oats and chia, it binds with excess cholesterol in your digestive tract. That means less LDL, bad cholesterol, gets into your bloodstream. Next, those berries, packed with polyphenols and anthocyanins, compounds that reduce oxidative stress, a major contributor to arterial stiffness. And the flaxseed, rich in ALA omega-3s, which are proven to lower blood pressure in multiple clinical studies. Now combine that with a 10-minute walk after eating, and here's what happens. Your blood sugar spike flattens, less strain on your insulin system. Your muscles absorb glucose more efficiently, leading to better energy and less fat storage. Your circulation improves, encouraging flexible, responsive arteries. And guess what? All of this reduces the total peripheral resistance. That's the pressure your heart has to push against to circulate blood. The lower that resistance, the less force your heart needs to exert. And that's when the numbers start dropping. I know this might sound technical, but stay with me. I'm not sharing this to sound smart. I'm sharing it because I wish someone had told me sooner.
I spent years relying on pills that masked the symptoms, but didn't address the root cause. This simple habit, this $5 breakfast and a pair of sneakers, did more for my pressure than all the medications combined. And I haven't even mentioned how it impacted my sleep. You see, when blood pressure stabilizes, your nervous system calms down. You're no longer riding that roller coaster of adrenaline highs and cortisol crashes. I started falling asleep faster, staying asleep longer, and waking up feeling, how do I put it, present. My mind wasn't racing, my chest wasn't tight. I could breathe deeply again. And when you sleep well, guess what? Your blood pressure drops even more. It's like nature rewards you for taking care of yourself. Now, I won't lie and say everything was perfect overnight. There were days I didn't feel like eating the same thing. Days I skipped the walk. I'm human. Life happens. But here's the surprising part. The more consistent I was, the more I craved that routine. Not out of fear, but because I could feel the difference. One morning, about 3 months into my new routine, my granddaughter Emily came over. She's 9 years old, all energy and sunshine. She looked at me with wide eyes and said, "Grandpa, you look younger. Did you get a haircut?" I laughed. "Nope, just changed breakfast." She didn't understand, of course, but I did. I had more color in my face. The puffiness under my eyes was gone. I could get off the couch without that grunt I used to make. My hands didn't tingle in the morning like they used to, and my energy? Smooth, not jittery, not crashing, just there when I needed it. That's what real health feels like. Not extreme highs and lows, but stability, calm strength. And here's something else I noticed, something most people never talk about. My cravings changed. I used to want salty chips late at night, or something greasy when I was stressed. But after a few weeks of fueling my body with clean, steady nutrients every morning, it stopped screaming for junk. Instead, I found myself reaching for nuts, a banana, even a boiled egg in the afternoon. It's like my body learned to trust me again. And once your body trusts you, it starts working with you, not against you. Now, I know some folks might be listening to this and thinking, "That's great for you, Jack, but I've got a busy job. I've got kids. I don't have time for all that." Let me tell you, this routine, it takes 10 minutes tops. Here's what I do step by step. Boil water while I get dressed. Pour hot water over half a cup of quick oats in a bowl. Add a tablespoon of ground flaxseed. Toss in a handful of frozen berries. They thaw in minutes. Sprinkle with cinnamon. Helps with blood sugar. Stir, let it sit while I tie my shoes. Eat, walk. That's it. No fancy blender, no supplements, no protein powders or meal prep Sundays. It's not about perfection. It's about consistency. Because when you do something small and helpful every day, it stacks up, like compound interest, but for your arteries. And here's where it gets really exciting. At my next doctor's visit, 4 months after I started, Dr. Simmons looked at me, smiled, and said, "We might need to lower your medication dosage." I couldn't believe it. For the first time in years, I was tapering off, not adding more. That moment was emotional for me. I sat in the car afterward, holding the prescription slip in my hand. Not a new pill, not a stronger dose, but a lower one. A signal that my body was healing. And I realized something important that day. Health isn't about doing everything right. It's about doing a few small things right, again and again, until your body starts to trust you back. And when it does, it rewards you in ways you never thought possible. When I first started adding that simple morning bowl to my daily routine, I didn't know I was stumbling upon something that scientists had been quietly proving for years. I was just a tired man looking for something real, something that didn't come with a long list of side effects or fine print warnings. But as the weeks went by and my blood pressure began to stabilize, I became more curious. I started reading, digging, asking questions. What was it about that mix, the yogurt, the chia, the banana, the cinnamon, that worked so gently, so consistently? Turns out, each ingredient played a unique role, like members of a symphony, each contributing to harmony inside the body. Let's start with the Greek yogurt. Unlike sugary store-bought versions, plain Greek yogurt is rich in calcium, potassium, and probiotics, the kind that support the gut and reduce inflammation. But more importantly, studies show that people who consume fermented dairy like Greek yogurt regularly tend to have lower systolic blood pressure. Why? Because calcium helps blood vessels relax and contract properly. And potassium, it helps flush out excess sodium, the main culprit in most hypertension cases. Then there's the humble banana, just half, not a whole one. Why? Because that's enough to give your body a solid dose of potassium without spiking your blood sugar. Most people don't realize that potassium and sodium are two sides of the same coin. When your diet is overloaded with sodium and lacking in potassium, your blood vessels stiffen. But when you correct that imbalance, even a little, magic starts to happen. Now, let's talk about chia seeds. I used to think they were just trendy nonsense, but I was wrong. These tiny seeds are packed with omega-3 fatty acids, magnesium, fiber, and antioxidants. Together, they help reduce inflammation, stabilize blood sugar, and yes, lower blood pressure. One study published in the journal Hypertension found that daily chia seed consumption reduced both systolic and diastolic pressure in people with type 2 diabetes. And guess what? You don't have to be diabetic to benefit. And finally, cinnamon. Just a pinch. Not enough to make it spicy, just enough to let the body feel it. Cinnamon has been shown in several small studies to help reduce blood pressure by dilating blood vessels and improving blood flow. It also helps the body use insulin more effectively, which can keep your blood sugar stable, another piece of the puzzle. Together, these foods weren't just breakfast, they were a strategy, a natural, nourishing way to begin each day with intention. But the real turning point wasn't just what I was eating, it was what I stopped doing. I stopped skipping breakfast altogether, thinking coffee alone would carry me through. I stopped reaching for processed cereals or toast drowned in butter. I stopped starting my day with stress. Instead, I gave myself 10 peaceful minutes each morning. I sat at the table, not in front of the TV. I breathed slowly, I chewed my food, and after that bowl, I stood up, put on my shoes, and walked outside, even if it was just around the block. It felt like a small rebellion against everything I used to believe, that I was too old, too far gone, too set in my ways. But here I was, changing. Quietly, steadily, and every step, every spoonful, every breath was proof. The funny thing is, when you start taking care of yourself, truly, gently, people notice. My daughter was the first to say something. "Dad, you look different," she said one Sunday morning as we sat in the backyard. "You seem lighter somehow." And she wasn't talking about weight. Although I had lost some, a few pounds of stubborn belly fat had melted away without me even trying. No, she meant something deeper. I was sleeping better. I wasn't so short-tempered. My eyes were clearer. My energy lasted longer than just the first cup of coffee. But the most shocking moment came a few months in during my checkup. My doctor, who had been gently nudging me toward medication for years, blinked at the numbers on the screen. "Your blood pressure is actually great," he said. "What have you changed?" And I told him about the morning bowl, about the slow walks, about the little decisions I was making every day that added up. He smiled. "That's the power of consistency," he said. "You gave your body a reason to trust you again." I'll be honest, it wasn't all perfect. There were days I felt tempted to go back to old habits, especially when I was tired or stressed. But each time, I remembered how far I'd come and how good it felt not to feel trapped by my blood pressure anymore. Because that's the part no one talks about, the emotional weight of it all. High blood pressure isn't just a number, it's a shadow. It follows you into your thoughts when you're standing in line at the store, lying in bed at night, staring at the ceiling. You worry about strokes, about your heart, about medications and side effects, about not being around for the people you love. But once that number starts to drop, something else rises. Hope. And hope is powerful. It pushes you to keep going, to drink more water, to get outside even when it's cold, to choose apples over chips, to add spinach to your soup, to go to bed a little earlier. It creates a quiet momentum. And that's the real secret. Not some miracle pill or extreme diet, not a complicated plan you'll abandon in a week. Just one. I remember one morning as I stirred my little bowl of oats and berries, I looked out the window and realized something simple but powerful. I wasn't scared anymore. Not of the numbers, not of the future, not of my own body. For the first time in years, I felt like my health wasn't slipping away from me. I was holding it gently in my hands, and all it took was a quiet, consistent act of care each morning, a small promise I kept to myself before the world even woke up. That's the thing. Healing doesn't always look dramatic. It often looks like oatmeal. Like walking around the block instead of collapsing on the couch. Like reaching for water instead of soda. Like saying, "I'll try," instead of, "What's the point?" It's choosing small acts of love over and over again, even when no one's watching, especially then. And if you're watching this, wondering whether your body can change, whether your numbers can improve, whether you still have time, let me tell you, you do. You're not too old. You're not too far gone. Your body hasn't given up on you. It's just waiting for you to listen. Start simple. A warm breakfast, a handful of berries, a little less salt, a little more movement. That's what I did, and my blood pressure dropped like never before. My doctor shook his head and laughed. I wish more people would just do what you did. No pills, no fads, just food. Real, honest food, and a decision to care again. When I went back for my 6-month checkup, my doctor just stared at the chart in silence. Then he looked up at me, half smiling, half shocked. "My friend," he said, "you did what most people don't believe is possible. Your blood pressure is not only stable, it's excellent. And it wasn't just the numbers. My energy was back. I was sleeping better. I had fewer headaches. The heaviness I'd lived with, physically and emotionally, had finally lifted. And all of this from something so humble, so quiet, so simple. Just a bowl of oatmeal every morning. Dressed with kindness, a few walnuts, a sprinkle of cinnamon, some fresh berries, or a spoon of flaxseed. No sugar bombs, no crash diets, no expensive pills. But here's the truth I want you to carry with you. It wasn't the oats alone. It was the commitment. The act of showing up for yourself before the world demands anything from you. The moment you say, "My health matters, I matter." If you're over 50, 60, or even 70, and you think it's too late, it's not. Every organ in your body still wants to function better. Your arteries still want to relax. Your heart still wants to beat strong. And your future still wants to surprise you, if you let it. You don't need to do everything at once. Start with one meal. Make your mornings sacred. Nourish them with real food and calm. Let your breakfast be your medicine. Let it be your statement to the world that you're still choosing life, every single day. And once you begin, don't stop. Not when you feel lazy, not when you're tired, and definitely not when someone says, "At your age, what's the point?" Because the point is simple. You're still here, and that means your story isn't over. Here's what worked for me. Steel-cut oats over instant, more fiber, better blood sugar control. Flaxseed, just a spoon a day for omega-3s and lower inflammation. Cinnamon, not just for flavor, but also for blood sugar and circulation. Berries or banana for potassium and heart-loving antioxidants. Walnuts or almonds, a handful of good fats to keep you full and satisfied. No added sugar, no syrups, just real food with real results. And remember, it's not about perfection. There were days I missed, days I felt discouraged, but I kept returning again and again until it wasn't a diet anymore. It was just who I was. Today, I feel younger at 68 than I did at 58, not because I reversed time, but because I finally stopped working against myself. I stopped ignoring the quiet warnings. I started listening to what my body had been begging me for all along. Care, consistency, and simplicity. So wherever you are on your journey, beginning, struggling, or restarting, I'm here to remind you, you are capable of change. Your best days aren't behind you, and your morning routine can save your life, just like it saved mine. Thank you for listening to my story. If it gave you even a spark of hope, I ask just one thing. Give yourself a chance. Go make that bowl of oatmeal and begin again today.